What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. The video that I'm going to reference, I'll link in the description for you guys so you can check it out as well. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Connor Rogers was on the Badlands podcast yesterday, giving his thoughts on the Lance Newmark news for who we expect to be our next general manager here, just based on the connection, the public perception of everything, right? The conversation was pretty, it was awesome, right? I didn't get the full thing because it's on Patreon, but for the 17 minutes or so that they discussed it, I think it was fairly objective, but there was definitely an air of negativity around it. A couple themes crept up. One was the fact that we've kind of seen this move before, right? For all the time that the New York Jets have had, hiring a 33rd team, hiring Rick Spielman as a consultant, you can argue it wasn't an awe-inspiring move, right? It wasn't anything that we as a fan base or the media that covers the New York Jets haven't necessarily seen before, and they related it to two situations. One is kind of the Adam Gase, Mike Maccagnan thing, where effectively Adam Gase put on, took over for Mike Maccagnan, put on Joe Douglas, right? And you can see, based on how the timelines have shifted here, effectively the same thing, right? Aaron Glenn's timeline gets moved up. We've talked about him, I feel like, being our front runner for maybe a month plus here. And so now, by extension, he may also be co-signing who his next GM will be. And then also to Joe Douglas, where the backgrounds between a Newmark and a Joe Douglas are fairly similar if you eliminate the Super Bowl rings for JD, right? Grew up in the scouting ranks, well respected, well liked, doesn't seem to have any, public enemies out there or anything crazy that would besmirch their resume, right? The difference is, though, the hype factor with Joe Douglas was much different than you can argue with a guy like Newmark, right? And then the other theme was that because he spent so much of his tenure with the Detroit Lions, and objectively speaking here, they've done next to nothing over the last 2 decades, multiple losing seasons, an 0-16 seasons, slapped in between there. And I don't believe they've really had the double-digit win season until this regime turned around, right? So they've kind of speaked about all of these things working against him, right? The fact that he's kind of a tier 2, tier 3 type candidate, which I kind of agree with, kind of don't, right? And I say that more so along the lines of I've definitely put him in the tier 2 category. I think he is up there with the likes of a Sullivan, with a Spielman, with a Greenberg, if those are some of your top guys, right? I definitely think he's just below Borgonzi. But with all of that said, a lot of what they highlighted, I think, is the reason that makes Newmark such a strong candidate. And also some things in objectively speaking, I think, aren't necessarily things he had full control over, right? What I mean by that is he worked his way up to his final position being senior director of player personnel, was director of player personnel, worked his way up through the rest of the scouting, whatnots, right? How much power do you theoretically have prior to getting that senior director of player personnel position? I would argue that, he's probably 5th or 6th best in the ranking of the previous Detroit Lions regimes. And so there's not going to be much that he can do specifically to sway the needle. But also, if you go back and look at the Detroit Lions for specifically what he would have been involved in, they've hit on a ton of guys over these last couple of years. They've just never really been able to put a ton of things together, right? So one of the things that specifically stands out to me about Lance Newmark is the fact that he spent so much time with the Lions. There's something to be said about the character of a guy that can go through the harshest of harsh times, and he's coming out on the other side, right? He's done well enough to be able to not only get promotions, but to continue to be looked at with respect, not just throughout the league, but with the Detroit Lions specifically as well. So I appreciate that. I want somebody that's been through trials and tribulations. I want somebody that's kind of battle tested or stress tested, if you will. And he kind of has a couple perks in his bag, realistically. I mean, there's some funny stuff about him. I think I just saw some kind of stat about Barry Sanders still being on the team when he was with the Detroit Lions franchise. But one of the other points that they talked about as well was, between him being with the Lions and looking at personnel and stuff like that, right? And I think they made some kind of point related to how many successful people really come out of that organization prior to Brad Holmes getting there, prior to, I keep wanting to say Dan Quinn, Campbell, prior to Campbell arriving, right? And I couldn't name you all, right? But there's definitely been some people that have gotten the boot or moved on that have still went and found success, namely former GM Martin Mayhew, who was also with the Commanders, right? So, not to say that fully dents their point or anything, but I don't know, a little bit superficial thinking, in my opinion, right? One of the things that I think makes him really intriguing, outside of everything that we discussed, is when he gets to the Commanders, he's looking at kind of an entirely new world of things, right? So many people installed into their positions at the same time. You're talking about guys that could have completely different thought processes here, right? A bunch of short-term guys versus long-term guys versus whatever the backgrounds look like, right? A cap guy, a salary guy, a scouting guy, whatever. He's been at the forefront of watching what it means to pick a quarterback of the future. He's been at the forefront of watching how you want to build a team around that. What does an effective coaching staff look like? What were those personalities? What were those traits? And one of the intriguing pieces to me that I just read as it relates to the quarterback is one of his roles with the Detroit Lions was overseeing their information and technology department, and something that Jaden Daniels was doing since he transferred to LSU was working with VR technology. And apparently this helped really speed up his processing and his ability to read and react to what's happening in real time. I won't go into the full thing, but effectively he was using VR to help mentally train and recalibrate his brain, if you will, as it comes to being able to handle, process information and different things like that. So I guess he was training at like 1.75 times the speed that you normally would expect, which means the defense is much faster, things are happening much quicker, and he was able to get thousands and thousands and thousands of additional reps using this, which helped out. All of that said, I think it would just be another intriguing layer, because I remember the Jets looking at VR tech, and I don't know if we still use it, if it's been dismissed, whatever the case is, but that could be something that we look to bring back and try to help influence what we already have on the roster, if you want to look at a Jordan Travis, or just somebody that we look to select as our quarterback of the future in this draft class, where it's looked at as more of a developmental class, but an uninspiring one, right? Not tons of immediate day one starters or guys that necessarily have a ton of elite traits that you're going to look for. So with all of that said, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Again, the video's in the description. Hopefully I broke it down well enough. But really the sentiment that I want to get across here is, I think for a lot of what they say, which is 100% valid, I think Newmark is a guy that has worked his way out of negativity. He's worked his way out of hard problems, stressful environments, and he's come out shining on the other side of this. And so, yes, it's a little bit of luck. It's a little bit of great timing. It's a little bit of kind of peaking in some of the roles that he's had. But I think this is a guy that's really going to go out and excite people. So let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you again. Peace.